What's up everybody, this is the 2023 Audi RS Q8. So about the RS Q8, well, this is just an awesome car. It's just so cool that you're basically getting a lot of the same mechanicals you're getting from more expensive vehicles like the Porsche Cayenne Turbo and the Lamborghini Urus even, just a little less horsepower for way less money, like 100 grand less. And so, I mean, especially if you get it in this color, which is called Dragon Orange, which I love that they named it that, but Dragon Orange really makes it stand out almost as much as a Lamborghini, but does give you a more subtle look, and I really love the styling of this thing. This one also has the black optic package, and so that gives you the darker grille there, and of course the black badging, and you also have some unique wheels, and these wheels also help you to stand out still. These are 23-inch wheels, which is huge and just awesome. Makes a huge statement. You have those massive brakes behind them as well, which are cool. But anyway, you know, coming down to the sides here, the Q8's been around for several years now, so nothing new really as far as the design or the shape really, but it is notable that, you know, you don't have like the flared fenders you get on the RS6 Avant, for example, because this is so massive you can house these enormous wheels and tires without any kind of fender flare needed. So to me it looks a little less special and stands out a little less from its lower counterparts like the SQ8 compared to like an RS6 Avant versus a regular, you know, S6 or something like that. Out back there, it also still makes a statement. You have the signature RS oval exhaust tips there that look great, and this one even has the tow package there, which is a funny little thing on a performance vehicle like this, but that allows us to tow 7,700 pounds, believe it or not, which is also impressive and makes this very practical and usable in addition to also being very fast. But I mean, it looks great. I love the full width tail lamps there in the back, and this vehicle is also really large, even though it's only 2 rows. I mean, it really makes a statement just with the size, the height of it, and just everything about this just is huge and imposing, and really, again, is in your face here in this Dragon Orange color. The interior of the RS Q8 is pretty familiar if you're used to any of the other higher end Audis. I've covered this interior several times already in the RS7, the RS6, and a few others as well, but it's a really nice interior, and there are some nice extra touches here for the Q8 and the RS Q8 in particular to elevate it even above some of those a little bit. So first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these fantastic RS seats with the integrated headrests, and I love how you have this quilting on them, and they're perforated seats, and so that means you have heated and cooled seats here available in these, and it just feels great. And that comes standard, by the way, on the RS version here. And these ones, the one option you do have to add on if you want the ultimate luxury is the luxury package, which gives you massaging seats as well as this Dynamica headliner. But the massage has a bunch of different programs, again, similar to any other Audi that's, you know, had these in the past few years, but really works well, and really nice, soft, comfortable seats with a good amount of bolstering too. That's appropriate for an RS, but not overboard either. And I think it's just a really perfectly designed seat for, you know, the buyer of this vehicle. But anyway, moving on to the steering wheel here in the RS Q8. It's great. It's the fantastic RS wheel we get in any other RS model. It has a fantastic 93 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches, and I like that it's not overly thick like you see with some of the BMW wheels and some of the others. This is a reasonable size, built for human normal hands, and I appreciate that. Just a few buttons here on it. It's so wonderfully simple with so many other steering wheels these days being littered with a million buttons. This is so just classic looking and just still very functional though, and I love how you still have like the cruise control on a stock. Just really well done. The gauges here in the RS Q8 are fantastic. The same Audi virtual cockpit, again, we've been used to from many years here, but I love how you have the different themes here for these gauges. You can go in and have the typical round dials, you can have the little swish mark thing, or you can have the runway set up. All three are cool choices, and I love just how fun these gauges are. They also have a head-up display here as an option. This one has, as part of the executive package, has the head-up display, and it's nice to have it also mirrors the same gauges you have here in the middle, which is kind of nice if you're going to, you know, do sporty driving. To have the tack up there and all that is great. And then moving over to the center of the dashboard here, you have Audi's typical dual screen setup, and it still works really well. And I love how they still have the haptic feedback here. They're nice large screens. You know, even these days with screens ballooning in size, you know, these still feel large enough to feel modern and is still very high tech. And the haptic thing is something that's really rare and really sets these apart. And I really love these screens in these Audis. They've always worked so well. They always have, you know, great response. They have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto that always connects pretty reliably as well. And, you know, there's a good amount of customization in there, and menus that are just nice and easy to navigate as well. With many of the competitors, again, having confusing menus, this is really simple and straightforward, and I think Audi does it better than the other German companies do, in my opinion. And also, this infotainment system is hooked up optionally to the $4,900 Bang & Olufsen Advanced 3D stereo system. And so it's 23 speakers, 1,920 watts of power, and it's fantastic. I love all these Bang & Olufsen 3D stereos. speakers in all these high-end Audis. They are just something to marvel at. You savor all of your favorite music listening to it through these speakers. It is a really fantastic sound experience. Coming down though, you have this lower screen, and that'll control all your basic climate stuff. And again, just really nice and easy to navigate that. And I love all the metals you have here. You still have a regular volume knob, which is great, and everything covered in leather. And I love the carbon fiber you have here as well, which really is just another high-end touch. I like that it's a matte finish. The only thing though about it is that whenever you're down by your knees here, it looks great, but the actual nice leather padding, which is what you want for your knee whenever you're resting it on long road trips and stuff, that is too low to actually make contact with at least my knee. Maybe some other people's knees it'll work out, but for me, I'm just resting my knee on nice hard carbon fiber, which isn't what you want. Doesn't feel very luxurious, even though it looks luxurious. Just wish that, you know, maybe they'd have some leather up here and start the carbon fiber further back or something. But anyway, that's my only little nitpick with this very lavish interior that otherwise is so nice. My other little nitpick though that I do have to say about this interior is the storage space. It's not great, especially for an SUV. So I mean, in the middle here, all you have are your 2 cup holders, and you have this little tiny slot right by your armrest here, and then you have the center armrest, which is very shallow. You have enough for a wireless phone charger, 2 jacks there, and a tiny little spot for your cleaning cloth, and that is it. So that means that, for example, a sunglasses case, I have to put in my bottle holder here in the door. I can't put it in the middle here, and it's just not a good amount of storage space, and I think some of the competitors do that better. So that's the only little other complaint I can say. But otherwise, this interior, just with the ambient lighting and just all the leather, it smells expensive. You know, you have leather covering all the dash, the tops of the doors, everything. It's just such a nice interior, and it's nice and quiet and serene in here as well, thanks to the double pane windows that you have here as an option on this executive package as well. The back seat in the RS Q8 is really nice and spacious. These Q8s are pretty large vehicles, and so you benefit with a nice, comfortable back seat. I'm 5'9", I'm sitting behind myself. I have about 5 inches of legroom to spare there. Lots and lots of space, lots of headroom, and those seats are also pretty comfortable. So you have their own climate controls back there. You have heated seats back there as an option, surprisingly. And I'm kind of surprised in a vehicle of this caliber you don't have cooled second row seats there. Otherwise, though, you know, they're also surrounded by air vents there on the B pillar, so they have, you know, air vents from both sides. They also have a fold down center armrest and their own pockets on the doors as well. So a really nice back seat. And it's also a fun touch. You have power sunshades, which is something you don't usually see in even some of the other vehicles in this segment. So yeah, that's a nice touch. And it's also fun. You have what used to be ashtrays still there in the armrest there and those rear doors, which is fun to see, something you don't see very often these days. The trunk space here in the Q8 is also massive, very usable, very spacious, very wide, very tall, very long. Beneath the floor, you don't really have any extra space though, unfortunately, but still plenty of space up top there to you know, give you all the space you need. I don't think anyone's going to really complain. And if you do, you can always go for something larger, like an Escalade V or something if you want even more space. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Audi RS models have this really nice key. It just has a nice slim profile to it, and just nice and small, and I love the RS badging there on it. But it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start, so you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it roars to life. Alright, so setting off here in the RS Q8. So the first thing that I think I'm always impressed by the most with these RS models is the smooth ride, actually. Whenever you're in the auto or the comfort modes, it is wild that we're on 23-inch wheels and this thing still rides super smooth. And so part of how it does that is that it has an adaptive air suspension as standard, and then you also have active roll control, which is a 48-volt system for the anti-stabilizer bars to really help and maximize the smoothness, so that even if one wheel is doing something different than the other wheel, it all is going to perfectly glide over it. And it really is as close to a magic carpet ride as you can get for something, again, that has this kind of a setup and is as sporty as this is. And it is just so good. And so if you see wheels like this and you're like, oh man, it's gonna be a rough ride, it's not. That's always one of my favorite things about these top-end Audis. Other things though that I love, you have a great amount of throttle response. As soon as you start tipping into the gas pedal, you get some nice response. The transmission's really responsive here as well, and just really set up well from what I can tell so far. Brakes also have a good amount of bite right as you get towards the top of the pedal there. It starts to clamp down. It's not super sensitive though. It's a little less sensitive than like BMWs that I've experienced in the past. This, you're able to You have a little bit of dead travel so that you can easily be smooth with them and just really easy to use, which is also impressive considering these are massive brakes. There are 10 piston calipers on the front, and you can get carbon ceramics as an option. This one does not have that, but I think they're still over 17 inches for the rotors. I mean, just massive, massive brakes on this thing, which you're going to need for a vehicle. It's almost 5,500 pounds. Other things, though, visibility is great. You have a great view forward. You're sitting up nice and high in these, and you really feel like you're sitting up really high. It's you know, you feel like you're in a large SUV for sure. Not as large as a body on frame thing or anything, but you know, pretty big nonetheless. Great view out of the sides, view out of the back is great, even though you have a little bit of a sport back kind of profile there in the rear. Doesn't hurt rear visibility, thankfully. You of course have all the other safety tech, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the RS2 mode here, which does turn off stability control or puts it in the sport mode. And let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. All right, there it is. Woo! And then it takes off like crazy. But there's an interesting delay there where it didn't want to do anything there for a second, and then it figured out what I wanted to do. So it's interesting. We have the transmission in its sport mode. It does that automatically whenever you're in the RS2 mode here. But launch control is really where you're going to have the most magic as far as the acceleration, and we will test out launch control here in a few minutes. But as far as the regular acceleration, still very, very strong. We're running a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 engine that's, again, familiar from all the other RS models for a while here in these upper ranges. And so it does 591 horsepower, 590 pound-feet of torque. It's quoted at a 3.5 second 0 to 60 time, but the Car and Driver actually managed to get 3.2 seconds in their testing a couple of years ago. So, you know, could do even better than that. That might be a conservative rating. And with a 0 to 60 time, that's only 0.1 seconds slower than a Lamborghini Urus, for example. I mean, you know, for that being $100,000 more, obviously there's other things you get with that extra price tag, but straight line acceleration isn't a huge improvement with that. So, you know, this is really the bargain performance one of the bunch in a way, at its $140,000 price tag as tested. But yeah, it's a little slow to give a downshift sometimes, but thankfully, you know, you do have the manual shifting here, so we will go ahead and play with that. Oh, got some crackles out of the exhaust. This is the sport exhaust this one has, by the way. Oh, I like how it cracks on all those upshifts, and they're nice sharp upshifts here, at least in the RS2 mode. Really well done. I like that exhaust. That sounds really good. It almost sounds a little louder than even the RS6 Avant. By the way, this road that we're on currently usually generates a lot of road noise. You can't even tell that I'm on this rough road because this thing is so well insulated and so quiet. But anyway, coming up some corners here we always take, and let's see how the RS Q8 handles. Right, it really sticks well. I mean, you do have a higher center of gravity, so you're going to give up some handling to the RS6 Avant. That is going to be the handling champ if you want this powertrain in a usable, practical package. That's still going to be the top recommendation. But if you want the extra ground clearance, this has about 3 extra inches of ground clearance over the RS6 Avant. You know, if you want that extra ground clearance, or you just don't want to bend over into a slinky wagon, you know, this still has some really good handling. You have 295 wide tires. They're Continental summer tires all the way around here. You also have an active differential in there in the back. It does torque vectoring. You have rear wheel steering as well, which helps this to really, you know, just have a smaller turning radius and just really dive into corners better. And it's really throwing around my camera gear back there really well too. But you know, it's really flat, and again, this is where that active roll stabilization really comes in handy, because it does feel perfectly flat. There is no lean, there is no sloppiness, there's no play at all really, while still again giving you a very smooth ride. It really is remarkable the magic that they've worked with these RS models. And I even tried to provoke it a little bit there going around that corner, and it still stayed stuck really well. So I'm sure the curb weight helps, the nice wide tires help, but you know, it never feels top heavy or anything, even though you have the higher center of gravity. It's just that it doesn't feel quite as, you know, low slung, and you know, it just feels a little higher up. So I feel like I have lower limits for sure than the RS6 Avant. That probably goes without saying, but just wanted to put it out there. You know, you do compromise a little bit on the handling. But let's attempt a launch here. Got RS2 mode on. All right, launch control activated. Wow, there we go. Wow, that is impressive. Woo, that was a rush. This thing is really vicious in that launch control mode. Man, the whole nose lifts up and it just takes off like a rocket. Man, that is fun. Yep, that is where you get the response you're looking for. And otherwise, I mean, this transmission still, whenever you're in the RS2 mode, it does give you, downshifts pretty quick and does get a pretty good idea of what you want to do. It's not perfectly telepathic though, by the way. It is an 8-speed automatic, I neglected to mention earlier. So 8 gears to pick from here, but I love the manual shifting, and the fact that it gives you the crackles and the pops when you do it as well, kind of incentivizes you to, even do the manual shifts a little bit more than you probably would normally. And they just work so well that this is a vehicle I would actually probably paddle shift around a good bit of the time. And I will have this vehicle for an entire week, so I will see, what I end up doing here over the course of the week, and whether or not I get annoyed with the automatic, or just give up and do the manual shifting all the time, or what. But man, and it's funny though, because I think it is trying to preserve the drivetrain a little bit here, because it does feel like it's holding back boost for those first few thousand RPM, and then it really lets go. I don't think, with a twin turbo, there shouldn't be any kind of turbo lag or high turbo boost threshold. It's just, I think, the way they set it up to kind of wait a little bit and then rip your head off, which is fun. It kind of reminds you of the old school turbos a little bit. Not as extreme as those. Some of those you wait until 4,000 RPM to get anything. This still has a very progressive build, but it's just certainly there's a little bit of a waiting period there, but it's fun, and I really love it. So yeah, I'm here for it. I think this is just so fun the way it's set up, and it's the same as the RS6 Avant, again, same as the RS7 and all those, and just as much fun as it is in all those. And it's impressive that a vehicle, putting this powertrain into a vehicle as big as this is, that you're still getting basically a 3 seconds 0 to 60 time, and you're still having the insane performance. It just shows how strong this motor is, that even whenever it's saddled with 5,500 pounds, it just doesn't even break a sweat still, and it just still pulls like a freight train, and it's impressive. And now we're out on the highway here in the RS Q8, and it's really great. Now, of course, it has all the top safety tech you'd be expecting out of a fully loaded Audi, so everything you can think of is covered here and more. And it's got, even for example, this one has the optional night vision camera, which is a really cool touch to have and gives you extra nighttime visibility there. It also has the thermal component, so it can pick out animals, pedestrians, things like that. Really great to have. And then we're currently having the adaptive cruise control system on with the lane centering assist, and it's doing a really good job here steering. Audi's system has been pretty good in my experience. It hasn't been totally perfect depending on the vehicle that I'm in, but overall it's a pretty nice, pretty reliable and trustworthy system for the most part, and it does a really great job. It is still a hands-on system. It's not hands-free. Like, again, I have to point out the Cadillac Escalade V. It has Super Cruise, which is a truly hands-free thing. That's also an insane, even faster, more powerful, super SUV, I guess you could call it. Obviously, its body on frame does not handle nearly as well as this, but if handling isn't your top priority and you're doing a lot of road tripping, I would consider the Escalade V if you want an insane SUV. But otherwise, still really fantastic as far as all the safety tech goes. And again, also, like, we're on a bumpy highway here with these lines cut in the road and everything, and still it's just a quiet hush of a sound, and that's all you're hearing. It is really so refined. That double pane glass, I'm sure, is really helping out. In addition to all the extra sound deadening, the fact this is 5,500 pounds, there's lots of stuff to soak up sound and prevent stuff from entering the cabin here. And so it just makes for a really nice highway cruiser. But anyway, that's it as far as all of my initial impressions here in the RS Q8. But thanks to Audi, I will have this vehicle for an entire week, so I'm going to drive around all over the place, have lots more fun. Then I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing and how it compares to its competition. Oh man. Alright, so I've been driving the RS Q8 for a week now. Listen to that. Oh, this thing is so much fun. It is clearly in the ultimate daily driver kind of category. It is just a dream car. It really is. And it's just, again, all the same wonderfulness that I loved about the RS6 Avant and the RS7. It's all here, just in a more practical, higher up package, and I love it all the same. It is just so good. And in addition to just the exhaust sounding great, I still love this Bang & Olufsen 3D stereo. It sounds so good, and I mean, yes, it's $5,000, it should sound really good, but it's just, I almost enjoyed listening to that as much as the exhaust, because it's just so good to listen to all your favorite music with this amazing stereo. So I was really impressed with all that. Another tech piece that I was pleasantly surprised to be impressed with was the night vision camera. And it was really cool that there was one point where I actually had just started to see a deer start to run in front of the vehicle, and right as I basically picked it up, the cameras also picked it up and gave me a deer warning immediately and primed the brakes. Now I was already on the brakes by the time that had already happened, so it wasn't, you know, something where it needed to intervene, but it was right there with a reaction that was just as fast as my own reaction. And really it's nice to have an extra pair of eyes there, you know, for deer and things like that, especially if you live in a place where you encounter, you know, animals that are large. It's really a nice feature to have. And I mean, obviously I still would have seen it without that, but you know, there's just sometimes where you're distracted or something. It's really nice to have that extra heads up there, and just the better visibility at night there in really dark circumstances is really great too. So I think that's actually worth the, you know, $2,500 or whatever that it costs. And when you're spending this kind of money, doesn't matter anyway. I did have two minor little nitpicks though about the vehicle over the week here, and they're really insignificant, honestly. The first though is the transmission. I have been keeping an eye on this transmission, and I will say that it's a lot better. If you watch any of my other reviews, I complain a lot about some of the Volkswagen products like the Golf R and stuff, where the DSG just is not programmed to give you quick downshifts anymore. It's not as responsive as they used to be, and they really seem like they're hypermiling with the new programming in those DSGs. Thankfully this, I guess they just don't even try, because again, it's going to be a gas guzzler no matter what. But you know, there were a few times where I could tell that it kind of was trying to, you know, resist a downshift a little bit. But the thing is that it doesn't matter what the transmission's programmed to do, because you just have so much torque versus a little 4-cylinder in a Golf R or something, for example, where this, it overcomes any kind of, you know, programming. It just gives you that extra torque. You got the turbos there that really spool up nicely, and you always have a really good response. So I actually didn't have any complaints with the transmission. I think in the auto mode, there was 1 or 2 times where I had to wait a couple of beats before it would give me the response I was looking for. But that usually seemed to be better whenever I was either in comfort mode, surprisingly enough, where it knew I wanted to be comfortable and, you know, just kind of was a little more clear on its mission. And then whenever you're in the sporty modes, there's none of that waiting around. The last minor little thing to complain about is the piano black on this interior. It does look very cool and futuristic and all that, but I know my wife was sitting up front here and complained about the glare from that piano black plastic. She had the sun blaring in her eyes on several occasions because it's so reflective. And even a friend who was riding along also commented on, like, wow, it's like really reflective. And also it just means that you have a ton of dust and fingerprints that get attracted to that area, and it really shows all that stuff a lot. So even after just a week of using this interior without cleaning it, you know, you see all kinds of dust and stuff that it accumulates. So don't love that. I wish they would just put more carbon fiber. You know, put this carbon fiber that you see on the lower part, put it on everything. I think that'd be great. Or, you know, allow people to cover that in leather or something. I don't know, just something that isn't super reflective would be a nice choice. But the last two things I mentioned here are the fuel economy and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as fuel economy, I guess that is potentially another downside depending on how much you care. In my time of driving here, I've driven this vehicle 136 miles, and I've been getting 12.8 mpg. Now that was mostly around town city driving. There's a little bit of highway mixed in there, but it's mostly just around town suburban driving. And so anyway, these are rated at 13 mpg in the city, 20 on the highway, and 16 combined. So, you know, I mean, it's hitting that city rating, and sometimes I get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating. So, you know, I was even prepared for 12 or 11 mpg. So to be getting, you know, basically that 13 number, you know, it comes with the territory, especially, you know, with this thing being extra heavy compared to the RS6 and the RS7, higher up, less aerodynamic. You know, this is gonna be the worst fuel economy one of the bunch here, I think. But obviously, you're spending $140,000 on a super performance SUV. You know, this should be nothing, and especially considering all the savings you get compared to all the more expensive vehicles on this platform, and even most of the competitors. You know, you have plenty of money there to spend on gas with all the savings that you're not spending on all those more expensive competitors. So, not a big deal, but just wanted to mention my fuel economy here. But anyway, yeah, speaking of the pricing and the competition, these start at about $125,000. This one, as tested, is just over $140,000, and it has all the nice packages you really want, with having the upgraded stereo, the luxury package with the, you know, massaging and ventilated seats, which work great all week, and you know, all the other nice stuff, the double pane glass, all the kind of stuff you're expecting from something that's this expensive. It's nice to have those packages, so I think I'd spend about $140 on one of these too if I were in the very fortunate position to spec one of these out. But anyway, at that $140,000 price tag, it's still a really good value. Not like people care about value when you're spending this kind of money, but it just goes to, I just have to say and point it out that, you know, the fact that this is on the same platform as a Cayenne Turbo, on the same platform as a Lamborghini Urus, Bentley Bentayga. Obviously, all those vehicles have different missions. The Bentayga is, you know, going to be more comfortable and more luxurious. The Porsche is going to, you know, kind of be similar to this as far as the performance thing and the luxury. Then, of course, the Lambo being more about the performance. And they do have more horsepower, so it's not like it's a carbon copy. They have a lot of unique things for all those different vehicles. Being on the same platform doesn't mean that it's, you know, cookie cutter vehicles or anything. But, you know, so it's just impressive that, you know, you get an extra 50 horsepower with the Lamborghini for an extra 100,000 or more. You know, this is really a strong value compared to that. But even compared to the Cayenne Turbo, there is no regular Cayenne Turbo anymore. It's just the Turbo E Hybrid, which is way more horsepower. It's like 730 horsepower, also way more expensive. Or the Cayenne Turbo GT is the last non-hybrid turbo we have. And those are, you know, $70,000 more expensive than this. And that's, again, before you get to the Porsche options list, which is much longer and much more expensive than the options you can get on one of these here. So, you know, you're going to probably even widen that gap even beyond the 70 grand, you know, spread already. And so, you know, with that kind of, you know, an upcharge for the Porsche, yes, it's a tiny bit faster, you have a tiny bit more horsepower. You know, are you going to be able to use and feel that extra 30, 40 horsepower, things like that? You know, the 0.1 second faster, 0 to 60? Probably not, you know? So I think this is really a solid value compared to those. Obviously, the Porsche has other things going for it. There's different interior designs and, you know, different handling setups and all of that. There's a lot that goes into it. But, you know, if you just want an awesome twin-turbo V8, really fast SUV that looks awesome, that performs great, you know, I still just think it's really tough to beat this. The only thing that does potentially beat this as far as value, again, I'm not going to harp on this long because no one cares at this price point, but the BMW X5M and X6M come in between 5 and 10 grand less. Now, you get smaller wheels on those, and depending on how you spec them, that price savings might end up getting washed away. But, you know, it's about the same price. It actually gives you slightly more horsepower. They're right under 620 horsepower now with their competition versions, but they do claim a slower 0 to 60. It's like 3.7 seconds, I believe, for those. And so, you know, that's really the direct competitor because, again, everything else is just so much more expensive. And, you know, I haven't driven those, so I can't comment on how they are. I've driven the previous generations of the X5M and X6M. They're very impressive, very fast, and I'm sure the new ones are even better. You know, and it's a very worthy rival to this, but, you know, it's just the other one that's out there. But there's really just, it's this and that, and those are your only two options in this super performance category at this price point. And so, you know, I think that the Q8 is just really top notch. Again, in my book, the last thing I'll say, like I said earlier, if it were my money, you know, it's the same price for an RS6 Avant. To me, that's cooler with the flared fenders and the wagon thing being lower. But if, you know, you don't want to climb in and out of a low-slung car all the time, or you think the extra 3 inches of ground clearance would come in handy for you here with the Q8 versus the, you know, A6 wagon there, you know, then I could see there's a case here for this. Again, it just comes down to your preferences, and it's great that Audi offers something for everyone's preferences and everyone's needs, and offers these awesome RS models at various price points that are all awesome in their own way. And I'm just a huge fan of the entire RS lineup here, and you can't go wrong with any of them, to be totally honest. I've driven basically all of them at this point, and they're all awesome in their own way. But as far as the RS Q8 here, absolutely love it. And you know, if I wanted a big SUV that was so fun to live with every day, this would definitely be at the top of my list. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts on the RS Q8. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Audi for providing me here with this RS Q8 to review for you guys today. Please also leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.